6 or 7 months ago, I was on a high-pressure call with a client. Slides were set, the camera was on, and I was doing that calm, capable sort of face that we all put on. You know, the one that says, oh, I've got this, even when your brain is juggling maybe 12 or 13 other things. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my 3-year-old stormed into the room, jumped up onto my wife's grandfather's drum kit that was sitting behind me, and played a solo so loud that the window beside me shook. This wasn't a tap. This was a full commitment. And I mean, it really shook me. It was actually kind of impressive. But something in that moment really struck me. I build risk frameworks. I help organizations understand uncertainty, plan for what could go wrong. And I realized in that moment that the most important things in my life were shaped by things that I could never have controlled. Control is one of those things that actually, if we just take a step back from, and we realize that we can let go and just let life happen, then something amazing can happen. When you try to control everything, you stop taking part in anything. And I realized, actually, that if I had just let my 3-year-old play, which I did, then the magic of life actually hits. And by stepping back, by realizing that something fundamentally wrong with me in that moment was actually the best thing that could have happened, and in that high-pressure call, I landed the sale. I realized that actually, if the worst thing that could happen is uncertainty, if the worst thing that I could do is just let life happen, well, then what was I so worried about? I realized a lot earlier than I ever thought about control and life, that actually control is the wrong way to look at things. When I was 10, my dad got sick. When he was 13, he was gone. He was only 43. I'm close to that age now, and my middle boy is close to the age I was when everything started to change. And I learned a lesson. I learned a lesson very early on in life that nothing is guaranteed. Not time, not presence, not tomorrow. And so I made a promise to myself and to my wife that when we got married, that if we ever expanded our family, I would show up for the big moments. I would be at the school plays. We'd celebrate the birthdays. I'd celebrate those small moments that become big moments later. But that came with a cost. That promise, whilst it was the right thing, came with a heavy cost. I started holding on to things too tightly. And I started to realize that the more I held on, the less I actually took part in life itself. Because when you make that promise to yourself, when you make that promise to hold on and to control things, to stop maybe every important moment from slipping through your hands, you stop taking part in life. It creates distance. Control creates distance from mess. Control creates distance from chaos, from surprise. And when control comes from fear, it means that you hide away from life, and you don't actually see what might be right there in front of you. Last year, we took a family trip to Spain, and It was the first time in a while we managed to get away. Nothing mattered, not the calls, not the diary, not my commitments. It was just the four of us by the pool. We ran mock football drills in the pool. We did cannonballs. We spent time together. We laughed. We laughed ourselves silly until our faces hurt. It was just life happening. And for the first time, the evening stretched out. I felt myself relax into what was truly important in my life. And one evening, as the sun was dropping, my wife said something to me that she said to me for years. She said, "Conor, money will come back to you. Time won't." Now, I had heard that many, many times before, but in that moment, it just landed differently. Because presence isn't something that you can schedule. Presence just shows up. And presence, I realized, was something that if you just brace too hard, if you're bracing against loss, then you are losing control. You're not actually trying to control everything that could happen. In that moment, I realized that controlling everything means you start taking part in nothing. And the fix is knowing when to step back. I didn't have language for it at the time, but I do now. And I realized that if we can all step back from control and step back from trying to control everything, we actually give ourselves an opportunity to be in the real world and to enjoy the mess, enjoy the chaos. And so I started to call this the step back. And as far as I'm concerned, stepping back has 3 stages. The first thing you need to do is notice. Notice what's happening. Take a breath. Realize that something is happening. And the moment you do that, you're already stepping back. You're already beginning to take a breath and to realize that life is happening all around you every moment. It doesn't have to be scheduled. It doesn't have to be diarized. It doesn't have to be controlled. The second stage then, pause. Actually step back. Literally step back. And I'll give you an example. If I'm finding that work is getting on top of me and I'm bringing my work home with me or downstairs from my office in the work from home environment we're all typically in, and I feel like it's getting on top of me and my kids are running around, I force myself to stop. I take that breath, maybe a second, because I don't want my kids to grow up thinking that the noise in my head mattered to me more than they did. And my wife talks to me every day. The more she says this to me, and I give, in fairness, she is a lot wiser than me. She should be standing up here instead of me, let's be honest. But there are 3 things that we typically talk about. Money will come back to you, time won't. Life happens, let it happen. And even if it's chaotic, it'll only be chaotic for so long. And we need to take in every single moment. But the third step is anchor. Anchor yourself in that moment. Realize what has surfaced, what has come to the surface, the calm, the chaos, the familiarity, the comfort, and embrace it. Because when I think back to that drum solo, And I think back to my 3-year-old jumping in amidst the chaos of a call. Part of me harks back to something that I heard once where somebody said, Conor, life isn't a drill. It isn't a performance. And we might rehearse to avoid regret. We might schedule to avoid surprises. But actually, life happens without control. And stepping back isn't weakness. It isn't letting go, per se. It's realizing that you can live life without control in confidence because you've confidence without control. And so when I do think back to that phone call, I realize, and you should all realize as well, that if you think back over the past number of weeks to a moment that you maybe didn't embrace, that you didn't live in, that maybe you tried to curate or edit, that actually if you show up, you stand back and anchor yourself in the moment, you can be real. Because life isn't a performance. Or rather, life isn't a drill, it is a performance. And showing up and stepping back is actually fundamentally what it's all about. Because if you can live your life amidst control, amidst chaos, and stand back and enjoy the ride, well, then you've won. Because life isn't a drill. Thank you.